Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion on our recently launched program on supply chain and retail management. So the concept behind this program is that there is a growth in various areas of and functions related to supply chain and retail management, and there has been continuous and consistent queries and indications from various individuals, professionals, and organizations that perhaps we should look at more intensive programs in certain different areas. And one of those areas that has been pointed out is supply chain and retail management. And as a school, also at Suleiman Dawood School of Business, we have been focusing more on our MBA program, executive MBA, PhD, and undergraduate programs. But we had this sense prevailing for last few years that we need more intensive programs in certain areas where we see growth and need. So one of those is supply chain and retail management. So that's how it was decided that we launch a program on supply chain and retail management at graduate level. And that's the context where that sets the foundation for launching this program and having this conversation today. Now, as we launch the program, we also got sense that perhaps the understanding of what means supply chain and retail management is also something that we need to work on. And as a result, we thought that perhaps it's best to learn from those who have been in the field in supply chain and retail management, that what do we mean by this field? And what are the issues in this field? What is the progress that we have made in this country in supply chain and retail management? What are today's issues, challenges, and opportunities for innovation? And then going forward, what are the possibilities? What are the areas of growth? What are the avenues where professionals in supply chain and retail management can make an impact? And also for our applicants and professionals who are aspiring to make a career in supply chain and retail management, we can give some ideas of on these lines that can help them navigate as they plan their career in years ahead. So that's the idea of this panel discussion. And I'm very happy and I'm very thankful also that we have a very strong panel today. We have Marek Minkiewicz. He's managing director at Metro Pakistan, Cash and Carry. And we have Hamid Hussain, who is director at SSC, Service Sales Corporation Manufacturing, and also SSC Brands. So we have his company. We also have Jamali, who is CEO of TCS Logistics and Group of Companies. And we have Ahsan Umar, who is executive in residence at STSB, and particularly for the program on supply chain and retail management. I am Dr. Shakeel Sadiq Jajja. I am Associate Professor of Operations and Supply Chain Management at the Business School at LUMS. And I'm also directing this program on supply chain and retail management. So it gives me pleasure to welcome all who are joining us on the social media and will be watching this session even after this session is over. This session will be floating on social media and you can find it. So I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're going to watch this session. So that's the norm of digital world, you know. So we are joining from different places in the world, and this was already there, but this has become much more common now. Okay, so with this background, maybe I can begin from the introduction of this field of supply chain and retail management, and we can benefit from the experience of Marek, who has been looking into this field for, I assume now, for 2 decades at least in this region or in this country, and we can surely benefit from his rich experience. So Marek, I would also request you to, before you speak, you introduce yourself, and I will be requesting the same for other panel members when I come to them. So if you can explain and also maybe give a brief introduction to of yourself, and also explain that what do we mean by retailing management in Pakistan, what are the different formats, and then what are the different issues that you have come across in this country.
Thank you. Well, short introduction from my side. I'm Marek Minkiewicz. I'm over 30 years in retail management in 7 different countries. Originally from Holland, although my name is Polish. In Pakistan, this is actually my 2nd time that I'm here. I was here in 2005 to 2009, setting up the macro stores, the very first foreign investor, and I came back. Sometimes I'm joking. I'm a Gora who likes Pakistan so much that he comes back a 2nd time. And the 2nd time was 5 years ago, where I now leading the merged companies, because there was the macro, there was the metro, and they merged in 2012. Of course, I know retail because it's always been retail, but supply chain is an integral part of it, because without supply chain, retail cannot live. And on very different parts of aspects of our operation from the beginning, supply chain is our lifeline, well, I'll be happy to tell a little bit more about that later on, if you ask me.
Yeah. Thank you, Marek. Thank you so much. I'll perhaps take the question back. I'll come back with the question again, and maybe I can ask Hamid Hussain to please introduce, and then Haris Jamali, and then Ahsan Umar, and then we can take on the questions. Hamid, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, Dr. Shakeel. Firstly, thank you for this forum. I'm quite looking forward to the discussion and hearing from everyone else also. My name is Hamid Hussain. I'm a director at Service Sales Corporation. We're primarily engaged in footwear retail with brands Endure, Service, Shoe Planet. I've been doing this business now for 10 years. I also have experience in pharmacy retail. I led the Surveyed Pharmacy brand for our company until we sold it about 4 or 5 years ago. And at present, my primary engagement is our 2 manufacturing facilities. With the changing global environment, there's a lot of now talk about globalization, localization, and bringing sources of production back to local shores. So that's my primary engagement, but I'm also involved in the warehousing and distribution across our 400 odd retail stores.
Thanks, Hamid. Haris Jamali, can I request you for your introduction?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And again, thank you for having me on this panel. I've joined TCS 2 years ago. Prior to that, and I moved back to Pakistan 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was based in London for over a decade, working in advisory services to the transport and logistics sector. So working, hand in hand with clients like UPS, DHL, Royal Mail. So logistics have been close to me for some time now. I moved back a little over 2 years ago to join TCS as head of strategy, and a year later I took over as CEO. Again, we are the largest integrated logistics platform in the country. Workforce of about 10,000 people, leading service provider as far as parcel courier logistics are concerned, but also extensively expanding into the 3PL and 4PL space. Definitely a huge growth area, as you would see with all the new startups entering the ecosystem, and a burning need for, I think, the national infrastructure to upgrade its logistics infrastructure.
Thank you, Haris Jamali. Pleasure having you. Ahsan Umar.
I now have around 25 years of experience in the corporate sector in different industries. I started with dairy industry, and my first job was with Halib Foods as brand manager. And from there on, I moved on to Nestle and worked into different areas, initially in sales, then moved into marketing, and then into supply chain. So when I left, I was looking after logistics and sales administration. Then I moved to Total Parco, and this was an assignment whereby I set up this convenience store network in Pakistan. So already there were players like Shell and PSO, but Total was new entrant, and the idea was to have a convenience store at every retail outlet that we open. So that's my first introduction to retail, and then from there on it continued, and I think today I have about 20 years of retail experience. Then I moved to Toyota, and so it was a very complicated supply chain of automobile, and then culminating into retail finally when you have that dealer network and you are selling your automobiles on the floor. That's a different experience altogether. From there on, I moved on to Metro Cash and Carry. So Metro Cash and Carry, of course, is one of the most, I would say, complex supply chain, selling about 60,000 odd SKUs on the shelves. So I worked there as head of sales and then head of operations, and then I moved on to Service Sales Corporation. And here it was another experience to look into the retailing dynamics of a fashion brand and how it is integrated end to end. And then from there, I moved on to Crescent Textiles. So textiles in Pakistan is a business that I think everyone should experience. Again, vertically integrated, complex supply chain structure, starting from yarn to finished garment. So it's very detailed, I would say. And then my current job, I'm working with Masood Textile Mills as Director of Operations, and also working with LUMS and Dr. Shakeel on this MS Supply Chain and Retail Management program. And really excited to work with a great team and share what we have learned with the community at large, and all the participants will be.
Thanks, Ahsan. Ahsan is working as executive in residence at STSP for this program. So I come back to you, Marek. So you seem to be the oldest in town as far as this space is concerned. Okay. So you see, retailing for different people may mean different. And you see, in this program, our applicants might be coming without retailing background or supply chain management background, and for them, retailing might just be that you go and you buy things. But a person like yourself can appreciate the complexity it entails. So maybe you can tell us that what are the different areas within retailing management? What kind of complexities exist there? What kind of questions and issues and challenges you come across as and your team who is managing supply chain and retailing function, they come across? What can we understand from there?
Now, of course, just as widespread supply chain is, retail is also, because I'm sure that Hamid will tell how in Shoe Planet and with his 400 locations, how it has to be set up. In our case, we have at the moment, we got 10 big stores, and exactly how Ahsan was saying, with 60,000 different SKUs. But there, the complexity is based on that we have a variety from, let's say, fresh meat, fresh fish, fruit and veg, till the fast mover consumer goods, till the non-food, where it's from electronics to textile. So it's a total mix. Then we have the spread over the country. We have import, we have frozen import, and the handling of, because even though 80–90% of our products are from Pakistan, there are still some things that don't grow in Pakistan, and there are also some things that obviously with a lot of things produced in China these days, we import. It's around between 5 to 10% what we do, and also the handling of that. What I've definitely have seen changing over the last 10 to 15 years, not only in Pakistan but worldwide, is of course the heavy digitalization of everything that has to do with supply chain, and that on all levels of in our case, retail supply chain, as I say at the beginning, is very, very simple, because we ask suppliers to deliver to our stores. That's why big retail can do that. Smaller retail like convenience stores or smaller operators, they fast have to start working with central warehouses because they cannot expect small suppliers to deliver many locations. So that's normally why big scale retailers like cash and carries like us or Carrefour are most of the time the first one who enter a new market, because it's relatively simple. We ask everybody to deliver. Only later, when our number of stores is increasing, when we start importing, then the complexity starts to be different. And for example, we organize north-south suppliers that are small from Punjab. They cannot deliver, or they deliver with difficulty to Karachi. They can deliver to a central point, and we have trucks going full back and forth between Karachi and Lahore with a mix of products that can deliver those stores. So yes, as diverse retail can be, from, as I say, this large scale that we have to smaller scale or non-food. Also the solutions of supply chain have to be diverse and can also be very different, whether it's frozen transport, it's cooled transport. We are a cash and carry, but we dropped the cash and carry in our name. It's now only Metro Pakistan, because 30% of our turnover we deliver. So there we have again another element of supply chain, that we deliver to our shopkeepers, the small kiryanas. And since 3 years, we also have online B2C e-commerce that we are doing totally in our own. And there we deliver to end consumers anything that they order, including again the fresh products that I mentioned. So in all the parts where we operate, whether it's supplying to our stores or even delivering to our customers, supply chain is well, the crucial part of it, because to make it sustainable, to make it profitable, you have to find solutions, and to find these solutions that are more and more digital. Yeah, we are looking every year for people that can help us to make the next steps in that in further development of retail that we are envisioning here in Pakistan. By the way, we have now 10 stores. We do 60 billion turnover, and even if we had a break for a long time, I'm very happy to say that since October we have a store in Multan that we opened, even despite the COVID situation that there was. And that store, despite the COVID situation, is doing very well. So even yesterday I was presenting to our head office in Düsseldorf my further expansion plan into Pakistan, and we see at least another 10 stores coming up in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thanks, Marek. Very interesting and useful, certainly for our audience. Hamid Saab. So we talked about non-fashion products. So Marek was primarily talking about non-fashion products. And I'm sure we also understand that fashion products, supply chain and retailing is very different from non-fashion. But in many ways, there are similarities also. So can you help us understand what are the key challenges in fashion products? You have been managing it. You can talk about your organization and the sector in general in Pakistan. So what do we mean by retailing and supply chain management of fashion products?
So I think that's a great topic which you've touched on, which is the similarities and the differences, because the basic concept of the supply chain, the basic model, as Marek also mentioned, is the same. You have your merchandise planning, production, distribution, and retailing. But the solutions that different companies and different industries need really depends on the predictability of the product, whether it's an FMCG product which has steady sales, or if it's a fashion product which is highly unpredictable. And also, of course, the store format or the retail format. So in terms of just a comparison between an FMCG company and a fashion retail company, I think the key driver is the unpredictability in fashion retail. So the solutions that we're constantly looking at are to handle the collapsing product life cycles. Before, if we had maybe 2 seasons a year, winter and summer, now we're seeing trends which come and go before traditional supply chains can react. So the entire concept now is to build agile supply chains, and vertical integration has been back in trend for many years, led of course by global leaders like Inditex with their brands Zara, etc. And the entire idea is to be able to respond to markets very quickly, which means managing sources of production, and the distribution times are more important now than the costs. Just comparing to the pharmacy retail that we used to manage, it was a much thinner margin and everything was driven by cost, versus fashion retail where the biggest cost is unsold inventory. So the entire metrics and the entire objective is built around getting the product to the customer while it's still in trend. And those are the sort of problems that we're trying to solve. Of course, the other global trends at the moment is omnichannel, which everyone has been talking about for a number of years. And that seamless interaction which customers very rightly expect, whether it's brick and mortar or online, they want their product as soon as they like something, they want their product. And as I mentioned, driven also by COVID, but this trend we've been seeing, which is changing sources of production. No longer do you want to be pegged to one source of production. You want to make sure that you're hedging yourself and creating some sort of supply chain securities for yourself, and also reconsidering what to bring onshore and what to have offshore. So even if the theme of supply chain is the same across different industries, I think, like you rightly mentioned, the solutions are very different depending on the industry.
Thank you, Hamid Saab. Haris Saab, so you see, whether it is we are talking about fashion products, we are talking about non-fashion products, logistics plays a very, very important role. And now we are seeing that becoming more and more obvious. And TCS is an organization, I would say, the one that started the logistics and couriering services and those things, and nobody was doing it. And can you tell us that what is, and our audience, that what do we mean by logistics management? And how does it underpin the success of industries such as, or organizations such as Service or Metro, and so many other organizations?
Sure. Yes, and as you rightfully said, I think in sort of 83, TCS pioneered the courier market, and we developed out of documents and now slowly migrating into parcels. But as an end-to-end sort of logistics operator, we play a critical role in overall supply chain management for our clients, right? So agility is critical, but so is real-time visibility, reliability, and convenience for the customer. So again, as we talk about different sectors, we have a portfolio that transcends from banking, which was our core base about 4 decades ago, and now we migrated into healthcare, fashion, online marketplaces, pharmaceuticals, and the list goes on and on. So the challenge with supply chain management from a TCS perspective has to basically keep this river, as I see this network which spans from north to south of Pakistan, touches every major and minor city in the country, and keep it connected in real time. And we are obviously almost have to be agnostic in terms of what is going through the network to ensure we serve all our customers. But then at the same time, you sort of need to integrate the entire process, especially the planning process internally, just to generate those operational efficiencies, right? Because that's what people pay us for. It's not just about delivering on time, which we do. It's not just about building their trust so that businesses can be built upon that trust, which is where TCS positions itself as a platform of services. But it's also about passing and sharing those supply chain efficiencies that come with scale, right? And technology has played a big role in that. So we are on this exponential growth trajectory, not just due to our internal engine being digitized, but also that of our customers. So, the e-commerce was the spearhead, which already starts from, digital first customer that needs a reliable logistics service. In all developed economies or developing economies, nobody can afford to set up the entire infrastructure, regardless of their growth. They can't commit all the funds to logistics and transportation. They need a supply chain partner because they have to divert their working capital management towards other higher ROI areas. So we see our role as a critical partner for all our clients. And again, don't forget, for us, it's also just the 900 plus express centers, right? I mean, we have a slightly different definition of retail in our own ecosystem, which are the express centers that you see up front. Again, they are migrating into experiences because we've moved beyond just the service element of booking your document or your parcel. If you walk into our center, you can pay your bills, you can sort of register, you pay your tax challans, we deliver Nadra cards, we deliver license plates, we deliver passports. So from our perspective, actually the supply chain, and again, this is driven by customer demand and customer evolution, the supply chain is also migrating to a digital journey. So as we talk about delivering goods and services through our ecosystem or through our sort of channel or this river, as I alluded to, we're now also handling and delivering a flood of information that has different value to different customers, right? From our perspective, as I already highlighted up front, there's a supply chain efficiency that generate obviously efficiencies and bottom line for us, but also efficiencies we can share with our customers. But at the same time, depending on which industry you're operating in, we have almost 4 decades of insights, right? When you talk about, say, a company like Metro, or you're talking about all the fashion brands, we are, just by virtue of being the largest player in the ecosystem, privy to seasonal trends, how supply chains and working capital can be optimized. And we're seeing this increasing trend of integration along our warehousing, but also our delivery network, where clients request, and we sit down and devise solutions in terms of better load planning, not just for their production line, which as a first step we won't claim to be the experts there, but as far as the logistics is concerned, we play a critical role in making sure they can also deliver on their promise, regardless of the industry, to their customer, because eventually the customer is the same, whatever perception they have of our client or our customer, it goes hand in hand with TCS. I think supply chain management and logistics management remains sort of at the bedrock of building a lot of different industries, and that's the critical role that we see ourselves playing. And as more industries grow, our portfolio expands, the insights and the cross-pollination grows, and again, a lot of times the trends are transferable, or at least the insights are, if not the trends per se, that you can really benefit clients with. So from our perspective, it's also, we've sort of migrated from the logistics or the tangible efficiencies, if you will, but also layer on the digital insights and the digital efficiencies of the information age, where we see huge potential going forward.
Thank you, Harisa. Certainly, we can see that how important logistics management is in making businesses like TCS become successful, and also other businesses that rely heavily on logistics management become successful. So it plays an important role. Ahsan Saab, I will come to you. So you see, we are talking about companies like Metro and talking about retailing of goods and managing the supply chain from suppliers and onwards. And then we are talking about service SSC, and we are talking about manufacturing also, warehousing and logistics until the retailer. And then we talk about logistics, something that underpins the success of these organizations. Now, for somebody who is new to supply chain retail management, that they would want to understand that what are the professionals and what are the roles, functional domains that exist within supply chain and retail management that make supply chain or retail management effective. So what are the different functional roles that exist in this space that somebody can look up to and pursue a career in?
This is a very interesting and I would say relevant question, especially for those who want to really make a career in supply chain. Even today, there are many companies who don't have a supply chain department. And supply chain is actually an end-to-end concept, that how to create value and how to create competitive advantage for the organization, and not just the organization, but the entire supply chain. Because today, supply chain is not just limited to the organization where you work, it's a network. So you have a network of supplier and their suppliers, then you have your customers, and then the customers' customers. So actually, supply chain is a network of many organizations, and you have to really create that alignment across the supply chain, which will bring you the competitive advantage. When we talk about competitive advantage, whatever you may do, you have whatever strategy you can go for cost leadership strategy or a differentiation strategy. You know, as a supply chain professional, you need to understand that even based on this, how will you differentiate? And you have 4 areas or 5 areas where you will differentiate. First of all, it can be cost. Second, it can be quality. Third, it can be time dimension. And fourthly, it can be flexibility. And finally, your ability to be creative and innovative, so that you bring that sustainability to your, supply chain. So when you look at all these things, how I look at it, the whole process starts when we come to its functions and putting it together into one, supply chain department within the organization, or even if the functions are still not, integrated under a supply chain department, you should have understanding of what those functions and roles are. So it starts with demand estimation. You need to really be able to estimate demand. And as Hamid was saying, that the key difference between a fashion retail and FMCG or other businesses is the ability to forecast demand accurately. And then this determines your supply chain design. So first function in any organization you go is demand estimation. And when you link it into manufacturing organization, there is a separate function which looks into planning. So planning of how to meet demand, which is production planning. And then you have how you will, really produce products which are to be, delivered to the customers, and how the machine level planning will take place, and how the material will be planned. So there is material resource planning, and there is, capacity resource planning. So CRP and MRP are the key functions, and all of this come under the umbrella of PPC. If you go into FMCG, there is a sales, planning department, and there is, every brand is planning their, forecast. And if you go to a business like Metro Cash and Carry, you have a, army of buyers who are actually planning their categories and their products. And same goes for a fashion retailer, where you have merchandisers who are planning their categories. So this is one function of supply chain where you plan demand. And then second thing that you need to understand is the product characteristics. That what is the characteristic of the product? If you have a product that has, some history, then it is easier to determine demand. If you are going to launch a new product, it is difficult to determine demand. And if it is a fashion product, of course, it has different demand. So that is one function. Second comes the quality itself. When you are producing or manufacturing a product, the quality needs to be ensured. So this quality function, or being as a supply chain professional, you should be able to understand that what is quality assurance, what is quality control, what is the difference between them, what is inline quality, and then all these quality functions, how they have to work in sync with each other, and you are not repeating things. So quality management, or being able to deliver quality product to the customer as per the specifications, is important. Then another important area is vendor development, because no organization can produce everything by themselves. As Hamid was saying, that you need to have a base of suppliers. Some suppliers you will develop offshore, some suppliers you will develop inshore, and then you will have your own manufacturing capabilities. And all of this will determine that what kind of supply chain you are going to make finally. If it is a efficient supply chain, then you are following make to stock strategy. And if it is a responsive supply chain, then you are following make to order strategy. So this understanding for a supply chain professional is also important, that how you will design supply chains. Then outsourcing, of course, vendor development is one, but then outsourcing certain things, that you make this decisions that in-house versus outsource. So what is better for you? Sometimes you have capabilities, but even having those capabilities does not give you the cost advantages, and then you go for outsourcing. And then flexibility, that what kind of flexibility you have. If you have more demand than what you actually predicted, or the capacity that you had, then you will have to go out. Or for example, there are certain products that you cannot make in-house, you have to go out. Like for example, I think Hamid will second this, that if you have to bring variety on the retailer's shelf, you cannot make everything in-house. You have to do certain products outside so that you can fulfill the customer demand. And then moving forward, manufacturing is one area which I think is self-explanatory. Then logistics is another area which exists as a function in an organization. And then if you move forward now, what's happening? Warehousing, inventory control. Your inventory management, I believe, is the most important thing for both type of businesses. If you look at FMCGs or even fashion retail, inventory is the key, because for fashion retailers, you have to clear your shelves and your storage spaces and warehouses before the next season come. And as the new season, there are number more seasons, it becomes even complex. So therefore, inventory management becomes very, very important. So what you plan or what you forecast should be such that you are able to sell in the season. Otherwise, you will left with a lot of unsold stock, which will have a lot of cost complications. If you come to FMCG side, there is a distinction between fast-moving stock items and slow-moving stock items, and then there becomes a big challenge to really ensure that you are not having a lot of money, cash tied up into your stocks, and you have to really work it out. And then pilferage. So inventory, just keeping inventory, it just damages, or it evaporates. So you have to have those controls in place to manage inventory. And I think the latest what trend is e-commerce. So when the business model is shifting to e-commerce, then everything at the back end is warehousing and inventory management, and your ability to deliver it to customer at the right time, at the right place, in the right quantities. So I believe all of this, or these are different functions within supply chain. And as a supply chain professional, you need to develop these capabilities and competencies to understand that supply chain is end-to-end. Supply chain is there to create the competitive advantage, and supply chain is there to create value end-to-end. So to me, this is the summary of this whole thing.
Thanks, Ahsan, for pointing out all the different options within supply chain and retail management where professionals can develop their career and get in more detail. Marek, I will come back to you. And I think now I would request the panels to reflect on the recent innovations that have been happening in retail sector, in manufacturing, in logistics, and what is that has been creating vibrations within the area that you are competing in. So for example, Marek, if we can have sense from the retail side and perhaps the non-fashion retail where most of your business is.
I will. You call it non-fashion. I call it the food retail where
Brilliant.
I operate.
Right.
The food retail that I
Yeah.
I operate in. And of course, in my time in Pakistan, I've seen how fast the development is going. I remember the time that Imtiaz had 2 stores in Karachi, one of them in the EOBI building at Sheriff Faisal. And Al Fatah was a store at Liberty Market in the basement with no parking and difficult accessible. And I've seen, and it's not because we made them change, but I think that the moment that Metro and Macro came and later also Carrefour, they thought, yeah, if we don't change, then they will take over. And well, everybody knows how Imtiaz developed, and they developed out of Karachi and are also now in Lahore and in Gujranwala and in other places, and also Al Fatah that went out of the basement, even when it burned down 3 times, but overnight. But they went out of the basement, and they also built more stores with more convenience of parking, and they also went for smaller formats. So you see things changing, and then even a company like CSD, which is also a retailer. I remember that how those 15 years ago, those shops looked like, well, rundown utility stores, with due respect. But if you now look at some of the CSDs at Sarwar Colony in Lahore or Cavalry Ground, yeah, that's a modern supermarket, and that's the trend that is definitely there, and that will continue, and it will only go faster. So that's one thing. And why is that happening? Because of also the consumer is expecting more. Consumers are expecting quality. Consumers are expecting the warranties on their products to be correct. They want to be sure that fresh products are kept in proper conditions. They expect that the milk is milk and not diluted, and that beef is not donkey meat, and things like this. There are more and more and rightfully expectations of that what is being delivered by food retail, that is of better quality. And a second trend of the customers is that they want to have a choice. Some customers will want to go fortnightly or monthly to do big shopping at Metro or at a Carrefour or Imtiaz. Some customers, they rather want to buy in a neighborhood shop. And by the way, we are opening franchise freshly shops. We have now 25 of them in bigger Lahore. And then there are also customers, and that was really pushed through COVID in a fast lane. Customers that think, yeah, I don't want to go to a shopping mall. I rather want to spend time with my family at home, and I order it. There are apps, we do it, the other retailers do it. There are also startups doing so that's a big development. Of course, it's still small, but because of COVID, that was also our experience, that it was growing very fast, the e-com food delivery as such. And I believe that the customer will want to have this choice. I don't think that brick and mortar will disappear. I don't think it will all go in smaller convenience shops. I don't think it will all go to e-com. But I think in 5 or 10 years' time, more and more customers will want to have the choice that this they do at this moment, and if they don't have time, they will choose. And if I add to this that in Pakistan, half of the population is under 25 years old, and there is a whole generation that never saw a normal, for me, normal telephone, but they all have mobile phones, and I see how savvy they are, ordering from Food Panda or other things very easily on their mobile phones. Well, in 5 or 10 years' time, that generation, the mobile phones will get cheaper, the apps will go faster, the consumer will have more money, and it will be much easier at that time to order. And we as Metro, and I think general and retail is preparing themselves to serve the customer in all their forms of buying as they want to do, because yeah, the customer is the most important. He wants to have the choice. He wants to have the choice buying big, buying, going to the neighborhood shop, or buying online. So that I think that those are the main trends in the. Don't ask me how it will finish in 5 or 10 years, because if I would know that, I would work on the stock exchange, but not in retail. but definitely all these trends will develop and will develop also very fast in Pakistan.
Thank you, Marek. So we see that there are new players coming in, existing players changing themselves, becoming better and better. Consumer dynamics are changing, digitalization, buying patterns are changing, how consumers are interacting with retailing outlets, that's changing. And we have to see how this unfolds in next few years. Whether it intensifies, it takes another direction, that is what we have to see. Okay, so let's come to the other side. Hamid Saab, I'm coming to you. So that's the food side, as Marek was putting it. So now let's come to your side. I mean my way of the fashion products and also manufacturing. And if we ask you that, what kind of innovations have been happening in this space in supply chain management? And I mean, things that were counterintuitive, that were looked at differently, but now they are looked at differently. And things which were not considered appropriate in your sector, but now they are becoming a norm. And they are challenging the existing knowledge and understanding and practices and setting the new norms. So what is happening that is that in your industry or in your side of the business?
So I'll talk about a couple of things. One aspect which I think Service Sales Corporation is handling well, and one area that of new trend which we're sort of missing out on. The first part is the responsive supply chain. I think the shortening of product life cycles is something that at least developed economies have been seeing for a number of years. The concept of throwaway fashion. And that has come to Pakistan as well and all developing economies. And to tackle that, if we look at our new brand launch, we launched our brand Endure around 4 years ago. And thankfully, it's been a large success. But a big part of building the brand strategy was making the supply chain strategy align with what customers expect, which is a constant rollout of new products, and sort of shipping out to something that's not working, adding on to the trend if a color is in fashion, being able to supply more of it very quickly. And what that entailed was a fully integrated view. Ahsan spoke earlier about how supply chain is a network, and I think he said that very correctly, because the strategy involves handling your sources of production, handling your suppliers, managing your distribution, your third-party logistics, all to shorten the life cycle and the lead time. Typically, if you look at a season, a winter season, we're talking 4 months where the customer is purchasing those winter products. And the entire concept is to shorten the product lead time. Traditionally, we were talking about 5-6 months from concept to shelf. And in order to respond to trends, you have to bring it to 2 months, 2.5 months to be able to do that. And that requires a lot of solutions throughout the supply chain. We changed our distribution centers altogether. We changed the way we monitor. Data analytics is a big part of it. How we monitor our third-party logistics. How can we help them improve service to different stores? We're dealing with stores in about 100+ cities. So there's a lot of lead time improvements and opportunities over there. And equally so in manufacturing, which you mentioned, the traditional concept of having a lead time of maybe 3 months, 4 months has to be tackled. And that requires some innovation in terms of consolidating materials, taking some bets on materials, and managing a shorter lead time. On the flip side, I think the move to digitization, the comfort which Marek was talking about, with half of our population being less than 25 years, and their expectation of an integrated experience between brick and mortar and the physical store. Even if they are not buying online, they are making some part of the decision online before visiting the store. And I think that's an area which not just us, but most other fashion retailers in Pakistan are improving fast and trying to meet those customer expectations of providing a true omni-channel experience. Again, that's part handling the data, digitization, but equally so handling warehousing operations and logistics. So both these aspects which I've spoken about, like you said, they were counterintuitive a time back. And I was reading a study on Inditex, which handles global leading brands like Zara, Massimo Dutti, etc. And they produce a large chunk of their products in Spain and Portugal. And the cost is typically 30% more than outsourcing to China. But on the flip side, the benefit is that response time. So this was typically counterintuitive, but now the entire world has caught up to this and to be able to tackle the fast changing trends in the market.
Thank you, Hamid Saab. Clearly, I think giving me a direction to go to Haris Saab. And you see, the conversation I was having with Marek and Hamid, it indicates that logistics and delivery is fundamental to make these businesses successful. So as a logistics company and as a representative or as a person from logistics sector, Arisa, what kind of innovations are happening there? Because your clients, whether it is Metro or Service or any other company, they are expecting more and more because their customers are asking for better and better service, faster delivery, less cost, innovative way of approaching them and serving them. And that will naturally lead to a pressure to logistics sector to become better at doing what they're doing. So what kind of innovations are happening within the logistics sector that have reshaped how logistics sector has been working, is working, and possibly can work in future?
Look, I think the common theme that's emerged from the discussion as well holds true for us as a logistics player, very well integrated into these supply chains, that the supply chains are shortening, right? Customer demands are moving towards instant gratification. How you manage those expectations will determine your future, regardless of, as I said before, not just the client that we deliver for, but us as TCS as well. And, previously, especially when the Amazon UPS debate started, there was a huge fight about customer ownership. And then I think over time, everybody realized the pie is clearly big enough and growing for everybody to have a role to play. So I think once you set the benchmark around customer expectations, and that obviously the bar keeps rising faster and faster, it's just about meeting those expectations. It's or obviously going above and beyond. So that will set you apart from your competition as well. I think the key innovation that's happening in logistics is predominantly focused around e-commerce. As I said, the customer is digital first, all sorts of players emerge, sometimes they don't survive. As I said, for us, we need to be the ecosystem that anybody can plug and play into and give maximum optionality and flexibility at the lowest possible cost. So that's our clear goal. That obviously then allows a lot of these businesses and innovation and ideas to flourish. So that I see as a key role. Then again, it's on the data insights and data analytics, as I mentioned. So a lot of times you can enhance or rather speed up the learning curve for players, that don't have the Inditex behind them or aren't as big as the Metro Cash and Carry, but to help them play a positive and constructive role in that industry, whichever one they've decided to add value in. And the other major innovation that is critical, and it's there in other broader supply chains as well that we discussed about, is around sustainability. So I think the key focus that's shifting now for this entire ecosystem in general is that people have realized, it's not just about growth at any cost. People are now very conscious of the cost, and again, that leads. I see examples of that from just pricing visibility vis-a-vis old traditional players like TCS is always being compared to, the first startup that emerged around your neighborhood and how cheap that is. People have to remember, the sustainability aspect. It has to be a lasting value addition, or it's just a distortion in the market. It's not really true disruption, as I keep highlighting. On other forums, you need something that will outlast clearly all of our lifetimes. Hence, the business will be sustainable. It will grow beyond us. It will grow to other generations and provide values in years to come. So I think, we are innovating and constantly testing electric vehicles, electric bikes. We have other forms of sustainable packaging involved because we're very conscious, even from our own bottom line perspective, on the cost of that and the efficiency that's providing to our customers. So we are also looking at every single aspect of our supply chain, again, very much integrated with our customers. And the other innovation, along with sustainability, the only way you can make this work is through a partnership model, right? That's the other thing we've realized and very consciously working on over the last 2 years. There's no longer terminology of customers in TCS. We talk about partners. We're partners. We're forging partnerships, even from the individual consumer that just walked into an express center. A lot of times, even they wouldn't realize the number of services we offer. So you enhance that partnership, and then with the broader players around 3PL, you are increasingly integrated into the warehouse, providing most of the services ourselves to better plan, load match, and just give better cost efficiencies to everyone. So I think from our perspective, the biggest innovation is around just interactivity with the customer. Again, as I said, it's a singular focus as far as TCS is concerned because we're partners with our clients. And they're just ensuring that the lead times are as short as possible, the cost is as low as possible, and then the expectations are exceeded. And going forward, this is showing us huge headroom into digital payments and other payment solutions as well, because I'll conclude by saying, as the largest e-commerce delivery player in the entire country, we handle billions of cash over each month or each day, which then poses its own risk. It has certain trust factors. E-commerce was rife with trust deficit a couple of years ago. COVID has changed that, but also the players like ourselves, Daraz, leading the way and building that trust. So, as quickly as we become more digitized, these risks will go away. Hence, if the risk goes away, logically the cost goes away as well. And you will end up providing maximum certainty, hence the lowest cost of ownership, and hence the lowest price for everybody to win. So I think sustainability is the key theme, driving all of this at the core. But again, I've highlighted a lot of variables that any supply chain professional can decide to play a critical role in. And I'll also add to this point, depending on obviously going by the nature of this panel, I think as a nation we are always short on talent and talent that really is specialized. There are very few universities sort of studying these fields as an area of expertise. That's an area we as a nation do need to catch up on, and the opportunities are limitless with platforms like TCS and a lot of my sort of esteemed colleagues on the panel as well.
Thank you very much, Haris Saab. I think a lot of innovation and a very good point regarding the talent. The supply of talent has to be there to fuel this innovation everywhere in supply chain and retail management. And growth is there now. We need talent that can sustain that growth. Now, if I can pick up this point a little bit more, and maybe in last 2 or 3 minutes, I can read your mind. That growth is there, we need talent. What is the advice that you can give to those individuals who look up to this growth and seek opportunities within various areas of supply chain and retail management? Quick comments from Marek and Hamid, and then I will ask Ahsan to please summarize.
Well, I want to say something about what Ahsan was saying, because he said every company needs a supply chain department.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely have. On top of that, I have a 7-member management team, which works like a board. And one of these persons is responsible for supply chain. So supply chain that also shows the importance, what we are giving to it, and the importance it is for our company. It's really on the highest level that everybody is involved in that. And in my experience on what people we are and who are successful in that, and that we also recruit and have in our teams is, I see often a combination of people that, they love data analysis, because supply chain and finding optimal solutions in ordering and replenishing and the best cost options. That is a lot of cranking on a lot of data. but in a combination with like a pragmatic, hands-on way of working. In our case, that means that you have to see how fruit and veg suppliers or how it's bought on the Sabzi to how you can do the best cross-dock supply lines from and that is something, if you think that interesting, that combination of those two things, yeah, then it's something you should look into definitely as a career development and go for supply chain logistics and retail.
Thank you so much, Marek. Very useful advice indeed. Hamid Saab.
I'll just add on to that. I think that's very well said, because it is an operations field at the end of the day, and it requires, of course, an analytical mind, a problem-solving mind, because there's always a supply chain model, and then there's reality. There's a lot of failures in between, so you do need that problem-solving mind. But at the end of the day, everything is happening in a physical space. You have to understand. You have to be willing to sit on the trucks and go on the supply routes to really get a feeler of what's happening. And here, I think the role is not just of the institution, and I'm really excited with the program that LUMS is offering, but also with the industry, with all of us who are sitting here and other companies, to provide some exposure. I saw the program that it has an internship element, which I think is fantastic, because that's what lends towards that mindset of analytics, but with a hands-on approach as well.
Thank you, Hamid Saab. Very well pointed out. And Ahsan, you see, what I can summarize from what Haris, Marek, and Hamid have said is that this is happening. This is an active field. So there is one theorization, or you can say understanding in your boardroom, in your meeting room, and when you go to reality, you have to deal with Aarti, as Marek was earlier pointing out. You have to deal with Sabzi Wala, and you have to deal with everybody, right? So you always have to recalibrate, re-navigate, and then make your way through and solve those problems that you come across. So Ahsan, if you summarize, if you can put the conversation that we have been having, that what is that a person who is looking up to our program and is trying to understand the field of supply chain retail management, what is that person can take away from this 1 hour, and how that can help that person navigate through the career? I know I'm putting you in a difficult question, and I'm also giving you very limited time, so I'm kind of testing your academic partiality in you.
Okay, really it's a challenge and a difficult question to answer, but building on what Marek and Hamid has already said, I think they have very rightly pointed out the challenges where the lead times are becoming shorter, where your quality requirements are higher. When we talk about fashion, customer is more demanding in terms of embellishment work, in terms of fashion, that is evident. So and then, as Marek has said, that it's a real world test. You need skills. So what about these skills? So when we talk about the supply chain professional, I think a supply chain professional really needs to prepare him or herself to learn these skills and then be able to apply it and practice them. Now, building on what Hamid was saying, in the manufacturing, all these things need to be translated into shorter lead times and variety and flexibility and quality and differentiation. So how that happens? It happens if you are able to undertake lean, you are able to undertake JIT, you are able to undertake process re-engineering, redesigning your manufacturing facility. Then costs. In order to bring costs down, you need to understand optimization techniques. So you need to really make a decision on where should be your warehouse located, so that it is optimum in terms of building cost, in terms of transportation cost. Retail location, what is the right location which will fetch you the big ticket customers and the convenience of customers and accessibility and all those things. So the program at LUMS actually prepares you for all those things. So if you have to deliver on these competitive capabilities, you need to acquire those capabilities, and those capabilities need knowledge. These capabilities need skill. So be data analytics, your forecasting ability, your planning ability, your your operations excellence in terms of being able to optimize the process, being able to optimize your inventory. You need to have understanding of the inventory models, like for example how much safety stock you need to handle, you need to keep, what will be the reordering point, and when what will be the transit time. So you need to come up with the solution that, okay, how much quantities will be offered and will be ordered and at what frequency. So these are the things which are not any layman can do. You really need skills, and you really need to have a program which will prepare you for that. And at LUMS, I believe if you look at that, you have a course on supply chain designs, you have a course on retailing management, where you teach students that what really retailing means, what customer really means, how can you enhance customer experience. So enhancing customer experience today is a science. So to me, supply chain is a science as well as an art. Science is the sense that you need real knowledge, mathematical models, optimization frameworks, supply chain frameworks in order to align your strategy with what you are going to do, so that you can be first choice for the customer. And then, since the market is changing, it's dynamic, and some models will not work, so you should have that ability to tweak, understand your situation, and then come up with a solution with all that solid knowledge and skill behind it. So to me, I think the best phrase, it's a science and an art, and you have to practice it, and you have to use the knowledge behind it and the skill behind it.
Thank you very much, Ahsan. And I have only limited time of these gentlemen, and a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom we had on this panel. And I'm afraid that we have access to this wisdom and experience only so far. And we will definitely love to have this wisdom coming in our classroom as we execute this program and learn much more that resides here. So with that, I thank all the panel members for their time and participation. And we look forward to having more and more engagement with these organizations and with you. I also want to thank all those who were listening to this panel discussion at different social media platforms. And also thanks to communication and LUMS marketing team for organizing this. Thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz, and hopefully we meet again.
Thank you.